It's time to be officially concerned about Trevor Lawrence. We'll explain why on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. You can also read her over at Yahoo. On today's show, we're going to discuss some James Cook, maybe RB1 breakout season. We'll talk about Jayden Daniels' monster performance on Monday Night Football. But Kate, before we even get to Trevor Lawrence, and that's going to be the headline of today's story, I need to apologize. I was wrong on something. Yesterday on the show, I said how much I hate these double Monday Night Football games. I actually kind of enjoyed it. It's nice when you get a blowout early. You can almost guarantee that the second game was going to be entertaining. And that's what we got on Monday. I'm glad that we had it. I was wrong.
And I'm going to be honest. Yeah, the construction of the blowout too. It wasn't like the blowout lasted into the third and fourth quarter. Really, like we could kind of just set it and forget it on this Buffalo Bills matchup here in the first half, which was great because then we knew where to divert our attention, and that attention went straight to the man, Jayden Daniels. But first, we have to talk about why we were so excited to have our attention diverted. And that's the Jaguars' struggle on offense, which obviously is headlined by quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Are you like, is he cooked? Is he done?
Well, here's what I will say. I was frankly shocked, Kate, to wake up this morning and not see that Doug Peterson was fired. Like I hate calling for people to get fired, but this just isn't working. They've lost their last 8 starts with Trevor Lawrence under center, and he has not played well. Let's be clear. But if you watched that game last night, it's not just a Trevor Lawrence issue. Like their defense just got ran up and down the field. They can't run the ball. Receivers are dropping passes. They're running the wrong routes. The offensive line can't protect. You saw Mac Jones come in the game, and again, this is on garbage time. Mac Jones came in, his arm is dead. He immediately turns the ball over. This is a franchise that is in a bad place right now, and I think everybody deserves to have their job questioned, including Trevor Lawrence. I think when you give Trevor Lawrence that much money and you spend the number 1 overall pick on him and you call him a generational prospect, you're hoping to see more by year 4. I think we've seen good things from Trevor Lawrence, but this is not what we were hoping for.
Not what we were hoping for. And again, it kind of just goes back to this fact that, like, man, nothing looks easy here for these Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, moving the ball looks like the ultimate chore here when it comes to Jaguars football. It doesn't matter, kind of how you're going about it, but it obviously all starts with Trevor Lawrence. Now, in terms of, throw accuracy, Trevor Lawrence actually has the 10th highest uncatchable, inaccurate throw rate in the league right now. And I mean, the names behind him, you're not going to be surprised, like Tim Boyle, Davis Mills, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. The only probably surprising name on that list, Dak Prescott, who comes in at the 6th highest uncatchable, inaccurate throw rate.
He's not played well to start the season, just to be clear. So that's not super surprising.
Not super surprising. But again, I do wonder kind of what do you do from an organizational standpoint? Because that's the one thing that I feel kind of safe, about in terms of Trevor Lawrence's dynasty value. I bought several shares this offseason because I thought, okay, we're going to have an offense loaded with Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas Jr., who I, kind of really took a liking to late here in the preseason. I just think the fit is a good one. Gabe Davis, like they have the personnel. So sure. I bought into Trevor Lawrence fully. What, like,
So
I don't
they
know.
have the personnel, but it's like the sum of the parts does not equal the whole, right? Like they
Yeah.
just nothing about this offense feels smooth. And that's why I keep coming back to Doug Peterson. Like you watch on Sundays, all these other offenses with a lot less talent run well and they function and they can create chunk plays. Like everything feels like a struggle. You look at Doug Peterson's now track record since 2018. He's never won more than 9 games in a season. You're starting to wonder, like I'm starting to wonder, is this offense just out of date? Um, I I would expect, Kate, that by the 2025 offseason, Doug Peterson will not be there and they'll bring in somebody else. My fear is it's going to be someone like Bill Belichick, right? Old guys like to move to Florida, have a franchise. Uh, be all that excited either because I don't think as much as I love Bill Belichick, he's not an offensive genius. He's probably going to bring Matt Patricia and Joe Judge to coach the offense. That doesn't get me excited for Trevor Lawrence either.
See, I'm kind of looking at it. There are two head coaching candidates right now that stayed with their respective teams: Bobby Slowick with the Houston Texans and Ben Johnson with the Detroit Lions. They opted to kind of hang back. I do think for two talented offensive minds, when you're looking at the personnel of the Jacksonville Jaguars, this should be an appealing team. You have who, like, again, I know it's been kind of a disaster to this point for Trevor Lawrence, but when you see the really bright spots, you're reminded of what could be with
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence. I don't necessarily know that, like, last year was a wash. He wasn't healthy. The first year with Doug Peterson looked a hell of a lot better than, what they put together under Urban Meyer, who was literally kicking his kicker. Like, I don't know that there's ever been a right answer for Trevor Lawrence. And I feel like the organization has just done him a massive disservice in not finding the right fit, because I do think they have a lot of great pieces here. And again, I'm looking at kind of the teams that might have coaches on the hot seat right now. The Jaguars actually, like, I don't think they look too bad. So, is there any world where you're maybe buying low on Trevor Lawrence, for those that?
Well, let me do this instead. Let's run through some quarterbacks that are being drafted behind him just to kind of gauge where his value is at. So, going into September, his average draft position was QB 13. Jayden Daniels, Jordan Love ahead of him. Behind him, Justin Herbert. Would you rather have Herbert or Trevor Lawrence?
Um, Probably Trevor Lawrence.
I think I'd rather have Herbert, but that's fine. Brock Purdy.
And just to be clear, I have much more faith in Justin Herbert as an NFL quarterback right now.
So do I.
Um,
I
but
the tiebreaker for me was the coaching. Like I know Jim Harbaugh wants to run the crap out of it, but at least I know he's a good coach.
that's fair. And that's again kind of my concern is just
Yeah.
this, are they just going to continue to take the air out of the football? Are they ever going to put it in Justin Herbert's hands? I don't know. But that one's
Brock
close.
Purdy.
Brock Purdy for me.
I mean, frankly, it's not close for me. I mean,
No, it's not even
Purdy
close.
had an unbelievable game this week with Jawan Jennings as his number one receiver. Well, Brandon Ayuk is there.
You
but
mean
he's
Randy Moss
Cardi.
Jr.?
Yeah.
Like,
And they lost. Purdy for me. Tua. This is where I would rather have Trevor Lawrence than Tua.
definitely.
Yeah. Jared Goff.
Um,
I'd rather have
See,
Lawrence.
this is a situation where I, again, believe more in the talent of Jared Goff, and I know what we're going to get from Jared Goff. He has the personnel. He's got a great coaching system around him. But I also wonder, like, we kind of know what his ceiling is, right? Like,
And it's not
I
super useful for fantasy because there's no rushing upside. It's all based on efficiency and volume.
yeah, I just wonder, we don't know Trevor Lawrence's upside just yet and how high
So
that could be.
so here's the part that's hard, Kate, is like even if you put Herbert and Purdy ahead of him, you're still talking about like QB 15. And I'm just not that interested in Trevor Lawrence's QB 15 because like I don't see a world in which he's suddenly a top 8 dynasty QB. So there's not a lot of margin for me to win on a trade there. I think what I'd rather do is take a shot on some of these other quarterbacks that are being drafted way lower than that, hoping to hit gold on, let's say, JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix, because Trevor Lawrence is better than those guys, but I just don't want to pay that price.
I think that's fair. I'm kind of just in a holding pattern right
Yeah,
now with Trevor Lawrence, but again, it's hard to deny that the upside could be there, but I don't think he's going to reach it as long as Doug Peterson
I agree.
is their head
Yeah.
coach.
All right, Kate, let's talk about Jayden Daniels, who was really the star of Monday Night Football. What should we do with him in Dynasty? All that and more next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the job. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We are discussing some of the biggest winners and losers coming out of Monday Night Football, the two games that we had. Kate, I don't think anybody could be a bigger winner than Jayden Daniels in week 3. Not only did the Commanders get the win, not only did he play well, he looks like a franchise-changing quarterback.
He absolutely does. And again, I mean, the Commanders were due, right? They've rolled the dice on so many different quarterbacks looking for their new guy. And I do think that Jayden Daniels 100% looked the part here. And I'm so happy because I have been all in on Jayden Daniels all off season long. And I think this was kind of a perfect display of what his ceiling and potential is as a passer. We all know that the rushing upside is unlimited when it comes to Jayden Daniels. He's just a slippery fish. Like, you worry about the hits that he's going to take because he does have a slighter frame, but he's tall. He can see the field and he can move and he's got touch. He's got accuracy. And I think what is most interesting for me is like my concerns with Anthony Richardson all off season was like, what do you do if the passing doesn't develop?
Yeah.
And my whole crux was like, all right, if we're going to rate Anthony Richardson as the QB6 with these unknowns, with him as a passer, then we've got to be rating Jayden Daniels ahead of him because I think coming into the league day one, he was already a better passer than Anthony Richardson. And that showed here in week 3.
Yeah, you've been on this all off season. You've been saying that Jayden Daniels has been incredibly undervalued in dynasty leagues, and I couldn't agree more. Going into the month of September, being drafted as QB 11 behind quarterbacks like Anthony Richardson at QB 6, Dak Prescott at QB 9, Caleb Williams at QB 10. At least you can understand that. But Daniels being drafted outside the top 10 was always ridiculous. Joe Burrow, who we really like, we enjoy watching his game. You watched those two yesterday. It's hard to tell which one is took his team to the Super Bowl, right? Like Jayden Daniels is that next guy up. His rushing is unbelievable. And what I saw last night, Kate, is you're starting to see Daniels become a smarter runner, right? Like there was no slides in the first game of the year. Actually slid a couple times, not taking as many big hits. He's going to need to do that to preserve his body. And actually, that's maybe why he's going to stay healthier than somebody like Anthony Richardson, who wants to be a battering ram at the goal line, right?
Yeah,
His
despite the
touch,
big frame, it just
exactly.
doesn't it's not conducive to
Yes,
long-term
you just
health.
can't put yourself in that many car crashes every single week and expect to stay healthy. Jayden Daniels looked awesome. yesterday. And I know this Bengals defense is not great, but he looked awesome. And there's going to be a lot of matchups coming up for the Commanders against some pretty rough defenses. It would not shock me if this is somebody who finishes as a top 5, top 6 quarterback this season.
Yeah, I have him. I think I had him ranked as my QB7 in redraft rankings. So like already pretty bullish, but I'm gonna be honest, like I was already every like week this offseason, I feel like I just bumped Jayden Daniels up a tick in my dynasty rankings, just like one spot, one spot, one
I
spot.
mean, it's hard not. Let's do a little exercise to see where you want to rank him. So, again, this is the latest batch of QB ADP from Dynasty League Football. You tell me when you would insert Jayden Daniels. So we've got Josh Allen at QB1, Patrick Mahomes QB2, Jalen Hurts QB3, Lamar Jackson QB4, CJ Stroud QB5,
I'll take him over
Anthony
Stroud
Richardson. Would you rather have Daniels after Stroud or just Daniels ahead of
before
Stroud?
Stroud. I'll take
It's hard to
Daniels
argue.
over
Like, this is
Stroud.
our point that we've been making this offseason. It's like we love Stroud, the player, but because he's going to give you no rushing upside, he's going to have to be incredibly efficient. And he's been fine through 3 games, but Daniels has been better.
Yeah, I don't even think there's like a close conversation there. Again, this is one of those things where the mismatch between real life fantasy, and this is also scoring dependent. If you have a 6-point per passing touchdown league that doesn't, as you know, maybe the scoring doesn't skew as heavily toward the rushing quarterbacks. But Marcus, would you be surprised to hear that Jayden Daniels already has as many top 5 finishes in fantasy as CJ Stroud does in his career?
I mean, it's not surprising to me because it's the rushing upside, right? And we talked about this last year. I think CJ Stroud only had 3 games of 20 or more fantasy points. Like, for as good as he was as a player, it didn't really translate into big fantasy production. You're already seeing it from Jayden Daniels. I did want to ask you about one more quarterback, Kate, because this is where our two worlds collide a little bit. Would you rather have Kyler Murray or Jayden Daniels?
I might just take Jayden Daniels there, to be totally honest. I think Jayden Daniels is officially ingrained, and this is not a reaction just to week 3, but an overall picture of what we've seen so far. I think he's QB5 in Dynasty for me. And, you know, that also comes back to the contract situation. He's on a rookie deal. This is the first year of his rookie deal. Kyler Murray has more question marks. Kyler Murray, is he safer? Yeah. Does he have a similar upside in terms of his ability as a passer, his ability as a runner? 100%. So the tiebreaker for me comes back to the contract, where Jayden Daniels, I think, has more security right now.
Yeah, I mean, Kyler did get a big contract, so I do think he's safe that way. I'm good either way. Like, honestly, like I'm not gonna fight you if you want to put Kyler ahead of Jayden. I'm not gonna fight you if you want to put Jayden ahead of Kyler. Like, I think these are both really fun offenses and fun quarterbacks. I would lean Kyler just because I like the weapons a little bit more. Now that will obviously change. The Commanders will get more weapons as Daniels grows, but throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride and Greg Dortch, and yeah, I'm putting Greg Dortch in the conversation with those two guys, is pretty hard to beat. I think that's the only reason that I would put Kyler right now ahead of Daniels.
I think that's fair. Again, contract. I like the fact that Jayden Daniels is on his rookie deal. Obviously, I think Kyler Murray's extended, I think, till 2027, 2027,
Something like
2028.
that. I mean, he's played
But
so well this year.
he has, and I don't want to discount that at all. So maybe the tiebreaker here is less about like contract than it is about like, I'll just take the younger dude. Maybe
Yeah,
that's the way
that's
to
fine. And
go.
that's
But
fine. That's typically a pretty good strategy as well.
I love Jayden Daniels so much, and all of the things that I was really excited about here in terms of, you know, again, that floor as a passer paired with that upside as a runner, all of those have come to fruition. And like you said, it's not even like they're, you know, Terry McLaurin, fantastic, right? Like one of the best wide receivers in
Mhm.
the league, even though it hasn't translated to fantasy points. But like you're throwing a, you know, Zach Ertz and Diami Brown, like it's not the personnel's not great. So if he looks this good, absent a really talented core of receivers, I'm going to take that as a really, really positive sign of what's to come.
All right, Kate, let's talk about another star coming out of Monday Night Football. James Cook in the Buffalo Bills. Let's talk about where James Cook should be valued in your dynasty leagues next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Actually, got a little story. Last night was watching the Commanders-Bengals game with a bunch of friends of mine. They were all rooting for the Bengals, and I said, I got this feeling that the Commanders are going to stick around and win this game. Went to FanDuel, placed a little live money line wager. Boom. What do you know? You win. It's so easy on FanDuel. Just pull up the app. You have all the games listed there. It's such a great and easy app to use. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel.com. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go find the new Locked On NFL, now with 2 shows every single day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks you off in the morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Tony, big Jacksonville fan, does the Locked On Jaguars podcast. I can't imagine what he's saying this morning, so go check him out also on Locked On Jags. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Kay, let's talk about James Cook, who had a really nice day yesterday, 40 yards on the ground, a touchdown, contributed in the receiving game as well. Could have had another touchdown, a 30-yard receiving touchdown, but the ball went right through his hands. This was not a huge game for James Cook, but it didn't have to be because he basically didn't play in the second half because Buffalo got out to such a big lead. I'm finding it harder to rank many running backs ahead of James Cook the further that we get into the season.
Here's the thing, Marcus. So when we were talking pre-show, you said, I think there's a real chance that James Cook finishes as the overall RB1 in fantasy for the 2024 season. Yep. My only question is, how does he do it when the rest of this Buffalo Bills offense is so dang efficient that he doesn't need to play the whole game? Like, he looks fantastic out there. He looks like an incredible runner. And I will say, even the points where, I never thought of his strengths, like for instance, yards after contact, like ability to play through contact, just the overall balance of him. Like, he's made some plays this season that have just kind of had my jaw on the floor because I'm like, I didn't know James Cook could do that. I thought he was more one-dimensional, the explosive back, but he looks a little bit more balanced. Like, I'm not going to call him a power back. No. He's still the explosive guy, but he's showing signs of like more lower body strength this year than I feel like we've seen in years past. And I feel like he's got the confidence of the coaching staff this year in a big way. Like, they're trusting him in more of these short yardage situations, closer to the goal line. He's being utilized as a receiver. Like, just missed out on this long bomb touchdown yesterday, which would have revolutionized his fantasy day even further. Like, it's hard to find anything not to like about James Cook right now from the tape, from the stats. It's just a matter of, is this going to be a situation for the Buffalo Bills all year long where they run up the score fast, Josh Allen's too good at football, and they pull the team? Like, that's my biggest concern with James Cook and his upside in fantasy this year, even though obviously we've already seen that fantasy upside.
Buffalo is very good. It's not going to be like this every week because they're not playing Jacksonville, who might be the worst team in the NFL. No, they've got some really hard games coming up, including a game against the Ravens next week. They've got the Jets coming up twice still in their schedule. Like, there's going to be some of these more low scoring games, and that's just going to lend itself to James Cook getting more touches and more opportunities. Now, the question for me is the touchdowns, because what we saw last year was Josh Allen had 15 rushing touchdowns on top of his 30-something passing touchdowns, and he just didn't get that bump. You're starting to see it a little bit. Like, they're using him more inside the 5-yard line, and I think it makes sense, right? Like, there's no reason to put extra miles on Josh Allen in September and October when you know you're going to need him in January and hopefully February, right? I think that James Cook has a really good chance, Kate, to finish his year with 1,600, 1,700 total yards, 13, 14 touchdowns. And if you just look at the running back landscape right now with Christian McCaffrey out, Breece Hall splitting work, Bijan Robinson still splitting work in a pretty low volume offense, I think it might be between him and Barkley as to who finishes RB1 this year.
Absolutely crazy. And I mean, again, you look at the age, right? Let's talk Dynasty here for a second. Right now, heading into the month of October, the September month of ADP, James Cook being drafted on average as RB14 in Dynasty startup leagues. That is
Wild.
behind Rashad White, behind several spots behind Isaiah Pacheco, several spots behind Kenneth Walker, who, again, as a player, I really, really like. But, from a dynasty perspective, he's also, sharing the backfield with another former second round pick who finally, at least in week 3, looked to be a little bit more competent. Like, he hasn't looked great to this point, Zach
Mhm.
Charbonnet, but he looks like he's starting to get it. So, like, what if that's a timeshare? Like, James
Well,
Cook.
I'll give you another one, Kate. Last night, Travis Etienne on the other side of the ball being drafted as RB7. To me, it wasn't even close to who looked better in that game. I thought Cook was a significantly better player.
I mean, and that's kind of been the case, right? If it weren't for the touchdowns last year, like in the insane volume, he's not been efficient to this point in his career. And I think we're just kind of seeing that play out. Now, how much of that is also an indictment on the offense? Like we said, nothing looks easy for this team. But like generally speaking, 3.8 yards per carry this year, bumped that average up to 4.6 yards per attempt here with, a decent day in week 3, but that came on the back of like a 20 plus yard run. Like, I don't know. I maybe I'm missing something, but he's also like 25 years old to James Cook's 24, but they're miles on the tires, much different to this point here. And I think James Cook might just be the safer option. So how high do you feel comfortable ranking James Cook right now with the state of the landscape? Because, like, honestly, outside of the top 3, if we want to say like Bijan, Breece, Jahmyr Gibbs, like, I don't even know if Christian McCaffrey can any longer be in that top 4 conversation, just given the circumstance of his injury and the unknowns. Like, how high is too high to rank James Cook in dynasty leagues?
RB5.
Whoo!
So here's the way I look at it. Like, if it's Bijan, Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, those are your top 4 in some order. Maybe you drop McCaffrey down because of the injury. I think we can have a conversation about James Cook after any of those running backs.
All right, Devin Achane,
Cook.
Jonathan Taylor.
Cook.
Whew.
I don't like this Colts offense. There's something about this Colts offense that gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't like it.
I think that man is Anthony Richardson. That's his name.
That's a big part of it.
I mean, it's hard because, right, like, that there's explosive elements to that offense, but what you really need, especially from the running back position, is like some consistency and ability to maintain drives, which they haven't been able to do. I think the probably last intriguing name on this list is Saquon Barkley, who right now being drafted RB8. He's 27 years old, a ton of miles on the tires, but got a nice contract with Philly and probably, I mean, looks more explosive and efficient than he has his entire career.
I love James Cook. I want to go acquire him in every league. The other thing is, It just feels like Joe Brady has made this offense less Josh Allen dependent, which is a good thing. Like Josh Allen can obviously run this offense. You can give him the ball 60 times a game and the Bills will be fine. But I think they're trying to take some of the pressure off of him and giving it more to James Cook allows them to be a more balanced offense. I've loved what I've seen from Buffalo so far to start the season. I think they look fantastic.
They do, and the way that they're executing, like everybody has their role in the offense right now, and I think
Yep.
that that's actually been kind of good. It's not just, if you're an opposing defensive coordinator, you're not just game planning for Josh Allen rushing
Correct.
attempts and Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs over and over and over again. There's a
Right.
lot of diversity that I think is lending itself to the efficiency of this overall unit that you've got to love. And now that they're kind of willing to share some of that goal line work, some of these valuable touches with James Cook, despite his lack of size, hard to argue with that upside.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Make sure you go check out our show on YouTube or wherever you download your podcast. We are free and available on all platforms. You can follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. You can also check her out over at Yahoo. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. Enjoy your Tuesday, and we'll be right back here tomorrow with Matt Williamson.